Welcome back to another episode of Real with Ryan. In this episode, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my coding journey. So as you could probably tell from the intro, I have my gaming setup and coding setup all pretty much done. And here's what it looks like. We've got my mouse and keyboard, 2 screens, a microphone, and my custom PC that I built that's down over there. So I'm going to be doing more gaming, streaming, and of course coding. So I've always wanted to learn how to code, and I've been able to do it some in the past, but I've never really been very good. I took a high school class and really enjoyed it, but for some reason I just never stuck with it, never continued. But I have so many business ideas and things that I would love to code that I've just never been able to do it. And so that's something I've always been wanting to do. And so now I just got accepted into Launch Code, a program to teach full stack coding and development here in Northwest Arkansas. And I've been accepted. And this is the second week of classes. And so now we're starting to learn to code. So what I want to do, similar to the triathlon videos, is create a little series that documents my progress of learning how to code. And this might not be the most entertaining videos, but I did want to just document what it's like to go from almost no coding experience to being what the program calls a full stack developer. So it really has started with the computer that I built last week, and which, if you check out that video, you'll see it. Okay, so I wanted to make a quick clip about my very first coding assignment. So for the past 3 weeks, we've been learning how to code, and it's just the basics in JavaScript. And so that's kind of how coding works, how all the pieces fit together, some of the basic commands and syntax. And I've been doing this for the first 3 weeks, and it's time for the first assignment. And now this, from the outset sounds like a super simple assignment, but all we are doing, if you can see on this screen right here, let me scroll in. So all we are doing is creating a quiz coding a quiz that asks for a name. It asks them a handful of questions, and then it tells you if you passed or if you failed. There we go. So it's a relatively easy ask, and if you see this on the internet, you wouldn't think anything of it because it would just look like this, and you're like, wow, that is pretty archaic, pretty generic, not complex at all. But it's actually, the first assignment, and to someone who's new at coding, definitely a challenge. So I'll bring you through some of my code here and show you kind of what I did. So here is my first program and that assignment. Over here on the left-hand side, I'm covering it up a little bit. You can see the code. I'll talk about that in a minute. But let's just run this and see what it does. So we run it. It asks for your name. I'm going to enter in my name. True or false, 5,000 meters equals 5 kilometers. That would be true. Hi Ryan, you answered true. That is the correct answer. Great. 5 plus 3 divided by 2 times 10. That equals 40. Answered 40. That's correct. Given the array, so this is some coding stuff. I'm just going to say corn, which isn't the right answer, but I'll show you what happens. So I'm sorry, Ryan, you answered corn, and that's incorrect. The first American woman in space, Sally Ride, is the correct answer here. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what is programmed as the correct answer. And then what's the crew size for International Space Station? The minimum, which is 3. And so hey, you answered 3. And then after these questions, it says overall grade, 80%. You got 4 out of 5 responses correct. And that is a passing grade. Lovely. So if you went back through and said, you can say your name is anything, but you can enter in whatever here. You can get them all incorrect. I don't know how to do buttons yet, and so let's do Sally Ride is correct. 3 there. So, you run it and say, hey, you only got 2 out of 5 right. So it's super, super simple program. But let me just show you the code behind it all. Okay, so here is the code behind this program. And I'm just going to scroll through it really quickly. People that know coding will be able to understand what's going on. People who do not probably won't. And so all of this quiz that I just showed you comes from this code. And I'm going to just briefly describe what everything is going on here. And kind of walk you through it, not in depth, but kind of just to understand what's happening. So at the top section, what this is declaring variables. So, without code or throughout the code, you have to use different variables that store the information. So all the questions that were asked are stored. The question number is stored, and even the correct question responses and the correct answers are all stored in these variables or arrays, which is a group of variables. And so then, what we have to do first is start asking a question. So that's what this does up here. What is your name? And then we can see the name. And so now we get into kind of the body of the code. And this is everything that happens behind the scenes that cobbles all this together. And so what I do is create a loop that says, for question 1, 2, 3, and 4, ask the question, and then once the question is answered, store the answer to the question. Once that answer is stored, check it versus the correct answer. If that answer is right, then you store that as a good response and say, hey, that answer is right. If it's incorrect, then you say it's not correct. And so that really is kind of the logic behind it. So relatively straightforward there, but it is, thinking through it can be a little bit complex. And then at the end, it says, okay, here's your overall grade. Here's how many questions you got right, and we were counting that. And if you got 80% or more, you passed. If you got less than 80%, you failed. So that's really it. I mean, I know it's very simple and straightforward, and if you saw this coded or something, you would think it's basically a calculator. It's really easy, but I wanted to show what the first assignment would be and how the starting point looks like. I'm not out here coding websites, coding apps, coding platforms, anything crazy like that. It's literally a little quiz. And honestly, it was a pretty big challenge, and the past 3 weeks have been challenging, but really rewarding, really fun, and I'm excited to do more and more complex things. And each kind of assignment or step along the way, the progression, I plan on recording it and taking you on that journey so you can see, the steps and progression through code, and hopefully at the end of all this, I'll be able to create some cool stuff. So that was the video. Short and sweet. Lots of people probably wouldn't enjoy this, but if you did, I'm happy that you enjoyed it. So, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining on another journey with me. And as always, thank you for keeping it real with Ryan.